what we wanted to do is to start to lay out the issues, to make it clear for our stakeholders what public finance is about, how it actually affects service delivery, so that they can have a deep appreciation around the breadth of sectoral interface with public finance, and so that they can better engage with the space. But not only for our stakeholders, we're also open to the general wananchi. We call them wanjikos in Kenya.
Welcome to Policy Unstuck, a public finance management podcast powered by Expertise Global. My name is Lilian Njeri, your host, and today we are joined by Wangari Muikia, the Managing Director and Founder of Expertise Global. Welcome, Wangari.
Asante, Lilian. Thank you very much.
Okay, so tell us about the journey that led us today here in terms of the Policy Unstuck. What vision do you have for this podcast?
Well, Lilian, it has been a long journey. Expertise Global has been in existence since 2016, and we've gotten to do a lot of work with very many different partners and stakeholders. We've worked with governments across Africa and internationally. We've worked with development partners. We've worked with CSOs. We've worked with the general public and other partner organizations. And through this work we've done, we have a lot of insights and a lot of experience of what is happening in the space, in the development space, particularly in public finance and public policy. And a lot of this insight perhaps is only seen by our clients, or perhaps doesn't have the reach that we intended it to have. So the idea behind Policy Unstuck really was to be able to have a platform where we can talk about some of the findings that we have been able to uncover, some of the insights we've seen or heard through our partners, and to be able to share them in a space where policy makers who we may or may not have access to can actually listen and really get the creative juices flowing when it comes to innovations in public policy and policy making, so that we can really be able to achieve the goals and objectives we have in our spaces, in our countries, and in our environments. So we're very excited and happy to launch Policy Unstuck. We've had a lot of support, and we're excited to share our insights and the insights of our stakeholders.
Oh, great to hear that. How does Policy Unstuck align with Expertise Global in general, and as well as the landscape in public finance management?
Our vision is, as Expertise Global, is a world where public service provision unlocks the potential of citizens, right? So if we are going to be able to provide insights that do unlock this potential, we need to be able to think innovatively. One of the things we've been seeing in the space is that governments, partners, and other stakeholders, the question is, where are we going to have the most impact? Where are we going to be able to put our resources where we're going to be able to achieve the objectives that we have? And it's not always very obvious, right? So we find there's a lot of missed opportunities. We find there's a lot of resource wastage. We find there's a lot of changing in direction and focus that can sometimes be detrimental, all in the aim of trying to get to that sweet spot of where we're going to have the most impact. And so I think with us, we try to provide that insight for our clients. We try to provide that insight for the governments. We try to provide that insight for ourselves, because we are also part of the space. We're part of the stakeholders, and we want to do the work that we commissioned ourselves to do to really give value for money, bang for our buck, and to see myself, my family, my friends, my neighbors, businesses, households to thrive within the context of our country.
If you think about the title Policy Unstuck, it's an interesting one. What's the inspiration behind that?
We had so many different ideas, but actually when we took a step back, we said, what do we want to achieve with this podcast? And I think what we want to achieve is exactly finding the opportunities where policy can have pathways to maximizing service delivery for citizens. At the end of the day, when you think about public finance is a means to an end. Public finance is not a goal in itself, and public finance meaning the management of public money, right? So when you manage public money well, you're able to provide goods and services to citizens to enable them to thrive. So you provide education services, water, social protection, security. If you look at the budget, you'll see all the different sectors through which services are delivered. And if we're able to provide support in that area, we then will be able to see the vision being realized. So we want to get the policy that's stuck, policy that seems to sometimes be in the wheel of death, and say, this is what we need to do to get this policy on the right track to be able to have an impact on citizens.
You mentioned earlier that Expertise Global was established in 2016. So why now?
Well, I feel like we felt as a company that we've been in the space for a while now, as a company, but also in our individual capacities. A lot of the people who are working within the firm have been in the space for a long time. And so, and partly also because we have a lot of insight, we have a lot of engagements with clients and stakeholders who feel that they're not getting to the heart of the matter. We also do work where we really have a lot of questions around what the value of the work is. And we feel that if we're able to provide some insights and inject our own thinking and give our own experience based on the years that we've been in this space and say, yes, we see your objectives, but we think this is the best way in which you can achieve those objectives based on our experience here in the country, based on our experience in other jurisdictions outside of the country, then we will be able to leverage our own internal knowledge for use by our stakeholders, for use by government, and hopefully get to the answers that we're all seeking.
And in a world where podcast is saturated, what sets aside for Policy Unstuck?
When we looked in the space, in Kenya and on the continent, and even globally, we were looking for a podcast or a platform through which public finance policy, public finance management frameworks are discussed. If you look in that paper, any day, if you go into any of the social media platforms, people are always talking about, taxes and government and what government is doing wrong. Sometimes what government is doing right, but mostly what government is doing wrong. Some people and because this impacts you every day, like you wake up in the morning, the services that you get are public services. The government is asking you to pay for taxes and fees and charges. And there is some sort of malaise or some sort of fatigue around paying taxes and not necessarily receiving the services that you need. And people don't understand the workings of how taxes, budgets, issues around procurement, people are talking about different levies and funds that are being created by government, how that is actually working towards providing us services and providing us the opportunity to reach our highest potential as per our vision. So what we wanted to do is to start to lay out the issues, to make it clear for our stakeholders what public finance is about, how it actually affects service delivery, so that they can have a deep appreciation around the breadth of sectoral interface with public finance, and so that they can better engage with the space. But not only for our stakeholders, we're also open to the general wananchi, we call them wanjikos in Kenya, that they can start to get an understanding of what the different perspectives, frameworks, engagements, theories, hypotheses are around public finance, and why governments may be doing the right thing or maybe not doing things that will help us reach our objectives, and that they become more informed and more educated about what happens behind the scenes, why things are being implemented the way they are, and what impact we expect to have.
You mentioned about the stakeholders. Who are the key stakeholders that Policy Unstuck is designed for, and how will Policy Unstuck meet the needs of these key stakeholders?
What we want to do now is we're targeting policymakers, and policymakers in the government space. We have policymakers that are in the development partner space, people who support developing countries. We have partners, even the general public, just kind of from an education perspective, but even for ourselves, right? So in engaging a wide array of guests that we want to engage, it'll help us to hone our own expertise better. It will help government policymakers to expand their spaces. Sometimes when you're working in a particular sector, you can kind of get myopic and really focus really on your sector. But our goal is to kind of expand that and say, you may be working in water, but we're talking about this thing about climate finance and climate change that is water adjacent because it's involved in environmental sustainability. For you to say, oh, actually, I was only focusing here, but there's actually an opportunity here. So it expands the way you think. It expands your opportunity to engage. It shows you different entry points where you can engage. And also for the general public, it just gives us additional information on how policy can be formulated and how we can get to the goals that we want for ourselves.
Great. And what impact do you hope that Policy Unstuck will have to these key stakeholders?
I hope, or we hope as a firm, we hope that this will be able to widen their perspectives, to widen their scope, to be able to see opportunities that they may not have seen, to be able to have new ideas, maybe even to just expand on the ideas that they already have. And we hope that with our discussions that we may be able to see a change in policy. Now, I don't think we can be so grandiose to say that, our humble podcast, although we have a lot of value in our podcast, will change the policy perspective. But I think in the small ways that we can change the minds of people who are decision makers, to allow them to see different angles, different perspectives. I think if we are able to do even just that, if we're able to even get the Mwananchi to be a little bit more educated in the way they engage with their government, I think we'll have already made big strides in how we are engaging with the space.
So this being the launch of the podcast, and we have upcoming episodes, who are the key guest collaborators that you will be sitting in this seat?
Public finance management is one of those kind of golden sectors that we're very privileged to be in. That really, it's a cross-cutting sector. So public finances touches everything. We collect taxes, fees, and charges to be able to deploy resources in, like I said, education, in agriculture, in the whole array of sectors. So we get to be able to work in different sectors and have that perspective. So our clients really will come from everywhere. We'll talk to people who are in health financing. We'll talk to people in social protection, cash transfers and things like that. We hope to talk to local players, African stakeholders in public finance. We will plan to speak to academics. We plan to speak to government officials, like people who are engaging in the space, people who have new ideas, people who we think have positive or interesting ideas that you would like to expand. And even at some point you'll see us sitting here, that's just the way I am in the guest seat, and say, we've done this work, we thought it was fantastic, we want you to know more about it. So I think we're going to have an exciting, there's something for everyone. You maybe talk to someone in the entertainment space. So the people who are in the entertainment space will be engaged. We'll talk to people who are in different sectors. So we're going to have something for everyone. We're going to be able to allow or not allow, but to provide channels through which everybody who's interested in how the government works to provide services to people to understand how those services are provided for them, and how they can contribute to improve that space of discussion and engagement to improve service delivery for their industries and for themselves.
I'm excited to hear all about this, and I'm excited to see this come to fruition, and also interesting to know the upcoming episodes. Maybe you could mention a few of the next 2-3 episodes that our guests can be excited to listen to.
Well, I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, but, it's a good point. You give people a little thing, something to expect. We've done a lot of work in health, so we're going to have some healthcare professionals come. The new baby in the room, is climate finance, which is now the space in which we work. So we hope to bring in climate finance professionals to speak about the issues around climate finance. We just had the big climate summit the other day, and a lot of people in the space were saying, we had this big climate summit, but we don't understand anything in climate. So this will allow, just like I said, an opportunity for people to say, oh, I understand what this may be about. I understand how finance, is involved in here, and so that you can be a little bit more educated in your day-to-day work. We want to speak to people about the debt situation. It's the big question around African countries, debt defaults. What is debt? How do we think about debt? And so I think that is pretty exciting. Some county officials, what is happening in the counties, what are the opportunities for engagement in public finance, what are the successes been, what are the areas of work. We hopefully will start with those and we will just build from there. We want to read the temperature of everybody in the room. So even the people who are going to engage in this podcast, hopefully comment in the section and say, we would like to hear more about XYZ. We're very open to bringing guests that are of interest to our audience.
Oh, great. Congratulations for launching this podcast. As you've heard from the managing director and the founder of Expertise Global, be on the lookout for the upcoming episodes. Glad to have you on this episode. Thank you, Wangari.
Thank you, Lillian.
Climate is going to be the future, whichever way we look at it. And as Africans, we can stand here and say we're victims of climate, which is true, and we're waiting for people to come and help us. Or we can look at what is starting to become a really, really big economy, as far as the green economy is concerned, and say, what does the future look like? What's Africa's role in it? And so at Jacob Ladder, the thing that we're doing is asking ourselves, what's the role of young people in this future?